Welcome, wanderer of the night. You have arrived just in time, not to battle monsters or climb Olympus, but to lie back in quiet surrender and gently float through the half-remembered, half-imagined fog of a myth no one truly wanted to make sense of. Close your eyes. Or don't. It makes no difference. Tonight's tale doesn't move fast. It hardly moves at all. It puddles. Like water on uneven marble. Like the tears of a man who loved the one person who would never leave him, himself. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders fall. Perhaps you've been chased by the day, the emails, the bus breaks, the broken egg on the floor you didn't clean up right away. None of that exists here. Only reeds, silence, and the strange echo of vanity trickling through the ages. Before we begin, a gentle favor. If this journey begins to lull you, if you find yourself smiling faintly or forgetting your own name as we descend into boredom, do leave a sleepy comment or quietly subscribe. Not to be remembered, but to join us again when you seek the same peace. Now, back we go. The ancient Greeks did not have toothpaste, but they had gods. And in the dry throat of their olive-covered hills, under skies that didn't believe in cloud cover, they built myths the way one might build shade, carefully, desperately, and for someone else to sit under. You find yourself walking barefoot along a dusty path. The sun is present, but not polite. It scorches without apology. There are no modern luxuries here. No ice cubes. No SPF 50. Only tunics that itch when the wind forgets to blow, and sandals made of leather stretched just tight enough to give you blisters in symmetrical places. And here, by a silent bend in this imaginary path, sits a pool. A still one. Not large enough to bathe in, nor small enough to ignore. Just still enough to show you what you are, if you're foolish enough to look. It's surrounded by reeds, and a dragonfly that's been dead for 3 days but no one has moved it. The gods, you see, are busy. Now, you don't know it yet, but this pool, this reflective puddle, will become more famous than any amphora, temple, or statue. It will not teach philosophy or win a war. It will simply be still. And into it, someday, will stumble a boy named Narcissus. But he is not here yet. There's still time to appreciate how nothing happens for several centuries. Let's turn, slowly, toward the village nearby. No one there is famous yet, either. But they are alive. Which in ancient Greece is no small feat. You are born screaming into a world of salted fish, unfiltered wine, and philosophical neighbors who want to argue about the soul while your goat eats your laundry. The air smells like thyme and goat droppings. A complicated mix. A woman stirs a pot. The pot is heavy, the stew inside it slightly burnt. She will serve it anyway, because the concept of a microwave does not yet exist. She blows on her fingers where the fire kissed her, and calls for her son. Her voice is cracked from years of shouting in hope. But her son does not come. He is out chasing a tortoise with a stick. The tortoise is winning. Elsewhere, a man carves words into stone. He believes they are important. But they are mostly a complaint about his neighbor's olives. Still, the act of chiseling feels powerful. He does not know he is creating the first known Yelp review in history. Back at the pool, the water is still. Waiting. Patient, like only water can be. It does not bubble with anticipation. It simply exists. And this, you realize, is its power. For in a world where everything dies quickly, from ambition to figs, the puddle remains exactly as it is. Which is irresistible to a certain kind of soul. And so we begin to speak, very gently, of Narcissus. He is not a god. Not yet a statue. Not even an idea. He is a boy. One of those boys who walks like the world should move out of his way. His tunic is cleaner than yours. His hair has never seen wine that couldn't charm. His smile is the kind that makes donkeys bray in jealousy. But even he, is not interesting yet. His story will come. After the oracles have had their wine. After the muses yawn and turn over in their dreams. After you, dear listener, have nearly forgotten why you pressed play. That's how you know you're in the right place. We are not here to race to the end. There is no prize. No clever twist. Only a boy, a puddle, and the slow, sad beauty of a world that believed stories were as real as roads. The fire has burned low in the village. The woman has finished stirring. Her son returns with a broken stick and no tortoise. The man finishes his complaint in stone and thinks he has won an argument no one else heard. Somewhere in the hills, a god scratches his back and wonders if anyone still prays for rain. And through it all, the puddle waits. Quietly, gloriously boring. A mirror not just for a beautiful boy, but for you. For me. For all of us who sometimes stare too long at ourselves, hoping to understand something, and end up drowning in reflection. But not yet. That's still a few dreams away. You are safe here. Among olive trees and drying linens. Among lazy gods and cracked amphory. You are walking slowly into a time that doesn't care if you understand it. It only asks that you observe. Gently. Sleepily. And as your eyelids begin to soften, just a little, the story begins to bend. Like a reed near water. Not to break, but to show you the shape of something ancient and oddly familiar. You are not Narcissus. But you are watching. And soon, you will see. Sleep, if you wish. We're not going anywhere. The puddle is still there. And it always will be. The morning in ancient Greece does not announce itself with an alarm clock. There is no snooze button. Only roosters who do not respect sleep, and the soft clatter of terracotta bowls being moved by hands that have already lived too many years before sunrise. You wake slowly. Or perhaps you were never asleep. The ground beneath you is dry and slightly uneven, which makes sense, because mattresses have not yet been invented. You roll over onto your side, which is an achievement in itself, and watch a speck of dust hang in the air, suspended, as if even time is reluctant to move forward here. Outside your stone and reed shelter, the roof of which leaks in at least two specific places, a woman is grinding grain with a rhythm that seems to echo back to before grain itself. She is not smiling. But she is not sad. She is existing. The way people often did back then, long before social media told them how. Your clothes are simple. A tunic made from linen, woven tightly enough to keep the sun off your skin but not the flies. You tie it with a belt that has been tied so many times before, it no longer feels like a choice. Your feet find their way into sandals with cracked soles and thin leather straps, and just like that, you are ready for nothing in particular. You step outside, into the dust, into the sleepy chaos of a village that has no name in history books. It is not important. It was never important. But it is yours, and it smells like sheep. The air is warm already. Somewhere in the distance, a man is trying to repair a cartwheel with rope and divine optimism. A child chases a chicken who is not in the mood. A philosopher attempts to explain love to a goat. The goat, for its part, disagrees. You make your way toward the square. It is not a square in the geometric sense. It's more of a vague dusty circle where people gather when they have nothing else to do. Which, fortunately, is often. A potter is arranging bowls he will try to sell for 5 olives and a story. A woman is whispering about a cousin who saw something in the sky last night, a comet, or perhaps just a confused bird. No one knows, but they all agree it's a sign of something. Because everything is always a sign of something, even if it's just indigestion. And then you see him. Narcissus. He is not glowing. That would be too obvious. But he moves like someone who expects the earth to part just a little with each step. His robe is cleaner than yours, which is suspicious. His face, annoyingly, has no visible pores. and he walks with the kind of casual perfection that makes you want to trip him. But only gently. The villagers look at him the way one looks at a rare bird, beautiful, but probably annoying to live with. The old men nod. The young women sigh. The goats, surprisingly, ignore him. Perhaps they are immune. He does not speak much. And when he does, it's often about things that only he seems to care about: his hair, the shape of his chin, the way light prefers his cheekbones. It should be unbearable. But somehow, it isn't. Because even the gods seem to admire him. Narcissus was, after all, not born from two ordinary people. His mother, Liriope, was a river nymph, which means she was wet and mysterious, like a metaphor no one asked for. His father, probably a god, possibly a mortal, definitely not present at the parent-teacher symposiums. The usual mythic setup: magical birth, handsome child, vague curses. When Narcissus was born, the seer Tiresias was consulted. A blind prophet, which, in myth, always means extremely accurate. Tiresias said, in his usual tone of unrequested doom, that the boy would live a long life, as long as he never knew himself. Now, to modern ears, that sounds like a recommendation from a therapist: don't overthink it. But in ancient Greece, this was more like a cosmic dare. The gods love to leave instructions with loopholes. It entertains them. Narcissus grew up surrounded by admiration. People compared him to Apollo, even though Apollo hated being compared. Flowers were left at his door. Poems were written, most of them terrible. And yet, Narcissus remained unmoved. Not out of cruelty, but indifference. He simply found other people insufficiently interesting. And this is where the puddle begins to tremble. Not with movement, but with possibility. But we are not there yet. Not quite. For now, you watch as Narcissus bends down to examine a cracked urn. He is not interested in the urn. He is admiring his reflection in the glaze. Briefly. Casually. Like someone pretending they don't care if they're being watched. A girl approaches him. She offers him figs. He nods. Takes one. Says nothing. She smiles, awkwardly, and walks away, somehow more in love than before. It is both tragic and predictable. You sit on a low stone, feeling the dust rise behind your knees. A beetle scuttles past. The sun has reached the middle of the sky and begun to yawn. Someone begins to play a flute, badly. You almost recognize the melody, though it may just be the wind getting bored. Narcissus disappears into the hills, alone. Always alone. The villagers return to their slow duties. The potter drops a ball. It doesn't shatter, just sighs and rolls away. The goat eats a corner of the philosopher's robe, and he lets it. You stand. You stretch. You wonder, briefly, what it would be like to be so adored and yet so alone. But the thought doesn't stay long. The dust carries it away. You return to your home. The leak in the roof still leaks. The air inside smells of time and effort. You sit down. Your bones crack slightly. No one notices. Which is, in a way, its own kind of peace. And as you close your eyes, not to sleep, but to rest, you think of the boy, the puddle, and the curse that hasn't yet come true. Sleep, if you wish. There is no lesson here. Only silence, and sandals, and the distant sound of someone falling slowly into themselves. The hills are quiet again. Not truly silent. No place is ever truly silent in the ancient world. There are insects doing whatever it is they do in dry grass. A distant donkey braying as if auditioning for a tragedy. And somewhere, wind nudging its way through olive trees, pretending not to listen. But for now, you are alone. The village has faded behind you, a haze of wood smoke and slow conversation. The path ahead is worn, though not by many. Only shepherds and the occasional philosopher who got lost on purpose. You walk with a kind of ancient slowness, the pace of someone who has nothing urgent to do and nowhere urgent to be. Which, oddly, is the most divine way to travel. To your left, a ruined column. Its purpose long forgotten. Maybe it held up a temple, or someone's ambitious idea of a granary. Maybe it was always just there. It's not trying to be remembered. It's just lying down. A nap that's lasted centuries. And then, around the bend, past a slope of time and long-forgotten sandals, you see the water. Still. Shimmering, not with movement, but with light. The kind of pale, flickering sunlight that never really decides what color it wants to be. You approach it slowly, the way you might approach a sleeping animal. Not because you're afraid, but because you respect it. The puddle, though calling it a puddle seems almost rude, is larger than you imagined. Not large enough to swim in, of course, but wide enough to see your whole face. Your tired eyes. The little line forming where your thoughts gather. The dust that clings, even to beauty. This is the place. Where it will happen. But not yet. You sit. The stone is warm beneath you, heated by hours of sun. A lizard watches you from a crack in the rock. It blinks. You blink. There is a moment of shared understanding. Neither of you belongs to history. But both of you are part of it. You think of Narcissus. Of how he moves through the world like someone untouchable, but never unreachable. Of how people chase him with love like offerings, and how he accepts them with the detached politeness of a statue. He does not ask for adoration. But he does not refuse it either. Which, of course, makes it worse. You heard once that a nymph loved him. Her name was Echo. A name that already hints at what's to come. She was cursed, not by her own sin, but by the pettiness of a god. Hera, perhaps, who thought Echo talked too much. She did. So Hera cursed her to only repeat what others said. No new thoughts. No replies. Just echoes. Imagine that. Being able to feel, but not to speak freely. To want, but only in repetition. To fall in love, and only be able to say it second. Echo saw Narcissus, and she followed him. Through forests. Across stones. Always behind, like a shadow that didn't belong to him. She loved him with the quiet madness of the lonely. But she could not say it, only echo his words. "Who's there?" he asked. "There," she said. "Come here," he whispered. "Here," she whispered back. It might sound romantic. It wasn't. When he saw her, truly saw her, he turned away. Not cruelly. Just disinterested. As though she were a painting hung slightly crooked. And her heart, that old, cursed thing, broke. She disappeared. Into caves. Into cliffs. Into sound itself. And now, they say, if you shout into a canyon, it is not physics that answers, but echo. Still hoping he might speak her name again. You don't cry, listening to this. You don't even feel much. Just a quiet kind of ache, the kind that settles into your bones when you realize the world has always been unfair, even to those who live in stories. You reach down. Your fingers hover above the surface of the water. The reflection stares back at you. Older than you expect. Wiser than you feel. It is tempting, this version of you, so calm, so symmetrical. It makes you understand, just for a moment, how someone might fall in love with a face they can never truly hold. But you pull your hand back. The moment passes. A bee hums lazily past. The lizard is gone. Perhaps it found a better story. The sun has begun to lower itself behind the ridge. Not dramatically. Just slightly. Like a performer bowing before the final act has even begun. Somewhere, Narcissus walks alone. The village is no longer enough. The gifts, The poems, the sighs, all too heavy, all too hollow. He seeks solitude, or perhaps something purer than attention. He does not yet know he is walking toward his end. You lie back on the warm stone. The sky above is starting to turn the color of sleep. You hear the soft rustle of leaves pretending to be wind. And you think of Echo, still whispering. Still waiting. There is no great lesson here. Only the slow realization that beauty is not always a blessing. That sometimes, to see yourself clearly is the most dangerous thing of all. And as your breath slows, as your limbs begin to grow heavy with history, you let yourself drift. Not forward, but inward. Toward reflection. Toward silence. Toward the puddle that waits. Evening in ancient Greece is not like the evening you know. There are no neon signs buzzing above empty cafes. No gentle hum of refrigerators or the polite sigh of a laptop cooling itself. Here, when the sun decides to leave, the world simply accepts it. There are no switches to flip. Only oil lamps, small clay vessels with just enough flame to illuminate a bowl of figs or the corner of a tapestry. If you want light, you have to earn it. Or wait for the moon to do its part. You're still lying by the puddle. It has no name, though one day people will call it sacred. For now, it is just water in a shallow depression in the earth, reflecting the dying sky like it's rehearsing for a play it was never cast in. Crickets have started their eternal argument. Somewhere nearby, an owl is deciding whether or not you're interesting. You aren't. Which is a compliment. A breeze comes and goes like an old friend who doesn't want to stay long enough for awkward conversation. It brings the scent of rosemary, of warm stone, and the faintest trace of sheep. This is not perfume. It is simply air, historical, slightly judgmental, and honest. You sit up slowly. Your bones feel like part of the landscape now. You wonder if the puddle misses the boy who hasn't yet arrived. But of course, puddles do not miss things. They only reflect. Somewhere in the darkening hills, Narcissus walks. Not lost, exactly. Just wandering. The kind of wandering that looks for answers but is too proud to admit it. He has left the village behind. The admirers. The gifts. The subtle envy of old men and the loud adoration of young women. He told no one where he was going, because he didn't know himself. And because deep down, he suspected they'd follow. He carries nothing with him but his pride and a small knife he never uses. It's ceremonial, a gift from someone he forgot. He tells himself it's for protection, but protection from what? Most dangers are emotional, and the knife is too dull for that. He moves like someone who wants to be found but doesn't know by whom. The stars above him begin to appear, slowly, cautiously, as if they're unsure if this story deserves an audience. And then, quite by accident, which is how all important things seem to happen, he finds the water. He does not recognize it as important. Not at first. It looks like any other still pool scattered across these hills. A place where goats might drink. Where someone might wash their hands before dinner or after tragedy. But Narcissus is thirsty. Not metaphorically. Not yet. He kneels. The stone presses into his knees. His fingers, elegant and uncalloused, dip into the water. He drinks. It is cool. Not refreshing, exactly, but adequate. And then he sees it. The face. Perfect. Still. Staring back with the exact same longing. He freezes. This is not new. He has seen his reflection before, in polished bronze, in the glaze of a wine cup, in the eyes of those who adored him. But this is different. This face looks back not with worship, but with understanding. It's not an admirer. It's not even a reflection. It's a companion. Or so it seems. He leans closer. The water shifts, just slightly, and the face disappears. He gasps. The sound startles a bird nearby, who flies off without caring how poetic the moment was. He waits. The water calms. The face returns. It's beautiful. It's him. It always was. But now, for the first time, he sees not just beauty, but presence. Something complete. Something that doesn't ask. Doesn't beg. Just is. And Narcissus, who has never truly loved anyone, not because he couldn't, but because no one ever quite matched the image in his mind, feels something open inside him. He does not know it yet, but he is beginning to fall. Not like a hero from a high place. More like a man into stillness. Back where you are, lying near the same puddle, though in a time long before or after, you hear nothing. The world has quieted. The crickets pause, perhaps bored. The owl has gone elsewhere. The breeze has forgotten its purpose. You imagine what it must feel like to see yourself and not look away. To fall in love, not with someone unreachable, but with the only person who's never left. It sounds peaceful. It isn't. Narcissus does not sleep that night. He lies beside the pool, eyes open, heart louder than the silence around him. He watches the water. Watches himself. Blinks only when he has to. He is not afraid the image will vanish. He is afraid it won't. The moon rises, half-hearted. The stars look down, ancient and amused. You turn your head. The stone beneath you is still warm. The sky above is deep now, a kind of velvet that doesn't invite touch. You understand, suddenly, why people told stories about gods. It's easier to imagine divine mistakes than accept our own. Narcissus stares into himself. Then for the first time, he doesn't look away. Sleep, if you can. The story is only beginning to pause. And the puddle is still watching. You wake before you open your eyes. Not because of a sound, but because the silence feels full. The kind of full that presses against your ears like a blanket that's been soaked, then dried in the sun. You stretch without moving. Your body knows this stone by now. The grooves of it have memorized you. The puddle is still there. Of course it is. It doesn't go anywhere. Unlike people. Unlike names. It only waits. Narcissus has not moved much since you last looked. He slept, perhaps. Or didn't. With people like him, it's hard to tell. His limbs are artfully draped in the way that seems accidental but isn't. His face, still framed by curls that deserve their own hymn, hovers just above the water. Close enough to touch, but not quite. The reflection looks back at him, sleepy-eyed and quietly amused. It knows something he doesn't. All reflections do. He stares again. Deeper this time. As if he can dig past the surface by looking harder. He touches his cheek. The reflection touches its cheek. He smiles, half curious, half trapped, and so does the image. And this is where it becomes complicated. Because the more he sees himself, the more he becomes unsure who is copying whom. Is he the original? Or just the echo of the thing in the water? Echo. There it is again. Not her this time, but the idea. The haunting of repetition, the ache of recognition. Back in the village, no one misses him yet. That is the funny thing about small communities. People vanish and reappear like clouds. Sometimes they return with stories. Sometimes not. And when someone like Narcissus disappears, people are too proud to say they care. The women braid their hair with more force than necessary. The men chew olives with a bit more salt in their mouths than the olives require. Children ask, "Where is the pretty boy?" and their mothers shush them like they've said something shameful. But here, beside the water, no one hushes anything. The world is too busy watching. The birds fly quieter overhead now, as if even they feel the weight of what's beginning to happen. The insects, too, begin to circle with more purpose, like the orbit of very tiny, indifferent planets. Narcissus doesn't notice them. He only notices the way the face in the puddle seems to need him. Crave him. Love him without hesitation. Without demand. The perfect kind of love. The kind that never interrupts. He leans forward, mouth parted. Whispers something. A name, maybe. His own. A word so familiar that when the reflection whispers it back, it sounds holy. His hand hovers above the surface. He wants to touch the face, not out of vanity, not even desire, but desperation. To make sure it's real. To make sure he is. But when his finger dips below the water, the face shatters. Only for a moment, but that's all it takes. The illusion, the intimacy, breaks. He gasps again. Pulls back. Waits. The water calms. The face returns. Smiling, forgiving. But a little more distant now. That's how it always is. The closer you reach for yourself, the more you risk losing what you saw. He doesn't understand this yet. But he will. Soon. The sun climbs higher, but the warmth feels less generous than yesterday. The stone beneath you, too, seems cooler. Not cold, just restrained. Like everything around this puddle is beginning to remember it is part of a myth. And myths are never kind. You look up. The sky is pale again, washed thin with heat. Somewhere in the distance, a fig tree droops with fruit too soft to pick. Bees gather. Not urgently. Just out of habit. You can hear them if you try. But it's hard to try when your thoughts are heavy. They are heavy now. Weighted with stillness. With questions. Why does he keep staring? Why doesn't he move? Why does the water seem deeper than it is? The truth, if truth has any business here, is simple. He believes he has found the one person who will never leave him. That's what love promises, doesn't it? That someone will see you and stay. Even if that someone is you. Especially then. But even reflections have rules. They only remain if you don't disturb them. You must be quiet. Still. Obedient. And Narcissus has never been good at obedience. He begins to speak aloud now. Not loudly, but steadily. Words spill from him like water from a cracked vase. Beautiful, but uncontainable. He tells the reflection it is the only thing that's ever made him feel less alone. He confesses things. Fears. Dreams. Maybe regrets. Though it's unclear if he's ever had time for regret before. He's always been too admired to feel guilt. Too perfect to question himself. Until now. You close your eyes, just for a moment. The warmth of the stone. The hum of the bees. The weight of a story unfolding without force. You let it all settle into you. Like dust. Like sleep. Like the kind of sorrow that doesn't hurt, it just exists. A background ache. A familiar one. Narcissus places both hands on the earth beside the puddle. He steadies himself. The sun reflects off the water into his eyes. He doesn't blink. His knees dig deeper into the ground, and he leans forward again. Slowly. Carefully. He whispers a promise. I will stay, he says. I will never leave you. And the puddle, because it is a puddle, says nothing. But it holds the face steady. And for him, that is enough. Sleep, if you can. Or stay awake, if you must. But don't rush. The boy is still watching himself. And the story, like the puddle, has many depths still to come. You open your eyes, though they never quite closed. Sleep in this place doesn't come like a curtain falling. It comes like dust, layering quietly, almost invisibly. A lightness on your chest, your thoughts. It settles behind the ears, under the ribs, in the folds of your fingers. The sky above has turned a pale, indecisive blue. The kind of color that exists only before something else. It might become morning. It might fade back into dusk. Time here does not behave as it should. And neither, it seems, does love. Narcissus is still there. Of course he is. The puddle has become his anchor, and he cannot unmoor himself. His knees have left slight dents in the earth, soft reminders that even the most beautiful leave impressions when they stay too long. His arms now rest on the edge of the water. He leans closer than ever, as if he might slip in, dissolve into the reflection, or perhaps trade places with it. It is unclear which one of them he thinks is more real now. You watch him with the kind of quiet curiosity you usually reserve for wild animals or old statues missing their noses. The puddle, still patient, still unspeaking, mirrors him faithfully. No judgment. No change. The face that stares back does not age, does not flinch, does not argue. And for a moment, you can almost understand it. That peace. That illusion of love with no consequence. A love that never challenges. Never asks questions. Never wakes you in the middle of the night with its breathing or its grief. But love without friction is not love. It is something else. Something quieter, colder, and lonelier than being alone. The wind has begun to move again, dragging its fingers through the dry grass like it's trying to remember where it left its song. A few birds pass overhead, silent shadows without purpose. Nothing here seems to matter, and yet everything matters, because you are watching it. And stories, even the boring ones, become sacred when witnessed slowly enough. In the distance, a voice calls. It's not clear whose. Maybe a shepherd. Maybe a mother. Maybe no one at all. The hills throw echoes like coins, scattering them randomly, letting them land wherever they will. Narcissus does not hear it. Or he does, but refuses to answer. His world is now a circle the size of a puddle. A small, perfect prison that reflects only what he wants to see. His lips part again. He speaks to the reflection. Tells it things he's never told anyone. Compliments it. Asks it questions. Smiles at it with a softness he has never given to another living being. The kind of smile that used to make others believe they were special, only to realize it was a smile shared equally with every mirror. You watch his eyes as they fill with something like awe, or terror, or both. The line between reverence and despair is thin here. Water thin. You shift slightly where you lie, pressing your palm into the warm, ancient stone. It feels rough and real and oddly comforting. You think of how many others have sat by puddles, by rivers, by pools, hoping to understand themselves. Hoping to find something in the reflection that they couldn't grasp in their thoughts. And how often they came away with nothing but ripples. In the myths, they say Narcissus was punished. That his love for himself was unnatural, arrogant, a sin against the gods of humility and sacrifice. But sitting here now, watching him, it feels more like a sadness. A boy so adored he never learned how to love anything outside himself. So worshipped he was cursed to believe that nothing beyond his own face could be worth devotion. What could the gods expect? They made him this way. Gave him the face. Withheld the wisdom. Dropped a prophecy like a riddle and then left the room. He lowers his face closer to the water. His nose nearly touches the surface. He breathes shallowly, afraid to disturb it. The ripples would erase him, even if only for a moment. And the thought of disappearing, of vanishing from his own gaze, has begun to terrify him. It is not death he fears. It is absence. Oblivion. A blank surface that offers no reply. You inhale slowly. The air has shifted. It tastes faintly of metal now, like blood or bronze. The kind of taste that hangs around when something is about to end, but not loudly. Just quietly. Elegantly. Narcissus doesn't know it yet, but his body is beginning to betray him. His limbs, so often admired, now feel heavy. His back aches from bending. His legs have forgotten how to stand. He is not dying, not yet. But he is melting into the myth, becoming the thing they will later tell children not to become. A warning in the shape of a boy with perfect hair. The puddle, constant, indifferent, remains. It does not mock. It does not mourn. It only reflects. And that, perhaps, is the cruelty. That it cannot love him back. That it only ever gave him what he gave it. A look. A smile. A whisper. Nothing more. The breeze picks up again, stronger this time. It rattles the dry leaves nearby. It hums through the reeds. It presses lightly against the water, causing the reflection to tremble. And for one agonizing moment, the image of Narcissus breaks. Just a little. Just enough. His eyes widen. He gasps. Not out of pain, but panic. Like someone watching their only light flicker. Like someone falling out of love in the space of a breath. But the wind dies. The water calms. And there he is again. He exhales in relief. And leans back in. The sky darkens slightly. A single cloud passes overhead, slow and swollen, like a thought too heavy to carry. You close your eyes, only for a moment. When you open them again, he is still there. And so are you. And so is the puddle. Nothing has changed. And yet everything has begun to. Sleep, if you must. The story will keep staring. Even if you don't. The day has thickened into something heavier than evening, but not quite night. That in-between hour, when the shadows grow confident and the insects begin to chant like a choir that doesn't know the words. The sky is bruised with lavender and gold, and somewhere, not far from the puddle, a fox pauses mid-step, listening for a sound it can't name. The world is holding its breath, but only gently. As if it already knows how this story ends, and yet still wants to savor the silence before it does. You lie back again, the stone beneath you now cool from the shifting air. Your body has molded into it, or perhaps the earth has molded itself to you. Time has unbuttoned itself. The past and the now have started to blur at the edges. Somewhere far behind you, or ahead of you, people are still chasing deadlines. But here, in this forgotten crease of the world, a boy and a puddle are locked in a romance with no future and no past. Only the reflection. Only the moment. Only the hunger. Narcissus has not moved for hours. His eyes, once mirrors themselves, have become tired pools. The skin beneath them is darker now, like the shadow of sleep that refuses to visit. His lips are dry, cracked at the edges. He speaks less now. The whispers have grown softer, then fewer, then gone. He no longer tries to hold conversation with the reflection. Instead, he stares in silence, the way some people pray, not expecting an answer, just needing to feel like they're not alone. The puddle, of course, remains the same. That is its talent. That is its cruelty. It never blinks. It never fades. It doesn't love him. It doesn't need to. It only returns his gaze, endlessly. That's what draws him deeper. It isn't the beauty. It's the stillness. The quiet attention. The certainty that this version of himself will never walk away, never change, never look at someone else the way it looks at him. What a terrible comfort that is. In myths, they often say he died of longing. That he couldn't pull himself away. That he wasted away, flesh turning thin, soul unraveling like old thread. But watching him now, you understand it differently. He didn't die from loving himself. He died from needing something back. He gave everything to the image in the water, his breath, his voice, his strength, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that the reflection would one day reach out too. But reflections don't reach. They wait. The wind returns again, cooler now, with an edge that smells like stone and something metallic, like old bronze or forgotten tears. The reeds bend slightly, whispering secrets only the earth understands. Somewhere, a branch snaps under the careless footstep of a deer, but neither you nor Narcissus look. The world is shrinking around him. The hills are dissolving. The sky has begun to lower like a closing eyelid. He sees only himself. And he believes it is enough. He leans forward again, but slower now. His body doesn't obey like it used to. The muscles, once admired by poets and shepherds alike, tremble under the weight of their own vanity. He touches the water. Once. Twice. Gently. The image dances away, then returns. It always returns. That is what tortures him. That is what comforts him. It never leaves. And so neither does he. You breathe in, deeply, letting the night enter your lungs like a kind of sleep. The stars have begun to appear, one by one, as if unsure whether they are welcome. They twinkle, faint and curious, like strangers passing a lit window. You wonder if they look down and see him. The boy who used to be adored by all, now curled beside a puddle, whispering nothing to himself. Back in the village, someone finally notices his absence. A girl with dirt under her nails and salt in her eyes. She remembers the way he once smiled at her, not kindly, but not unkindly either. She remembers the way he never looked back. She doesn't miss him, not really. But she notices the space he left behind. That is often how grief begins, not with heartbreak, but with the echo of someone's weight no longer pressing against the world. They search for him, half-heartedly. A few boys follow the path into the hills, calling his name with the flat tone of people who don't expect an answer. They see the dent in the grass, the scatter of footprints, the trail of wilting flowers someone once laid in his path. But they don't find him. Not yet. The puddle hides its secrets well. It reflects the stars, the sky, the curve of the hills. But not him. Not while he watches. Narcissus lies down now, his face still angled toward the water. His eyes barely open. His breath comes shallow, like the wind. There is no drama. No divine lightning bolt. Just a boy who loved too quietly, too deeply, too foolishly. And a puddle that loved nothing. You shift again, just slightly. The stone beneath you has become a cradle, the air above you a veil. You are no longer sure if you are watching him or dreaming him. If he ever existed at all, or if he was simply a story told too many times. But the ache in your chest says he was real. The quiet says he still is. And the puddle, that still, unblinking mirror, waits for the next face. Because there is always a next. And we always return to look. Sleep now, if you can. The boy has closed his eyes. But the reflection remains. The night has fallen without ceremony. No fanfare, no bright signal. Just the slow erasing of light, the hush of the sky as it pulls its blanket over the hills. The stars are out now, not the sharp, glittering ones of your modern cities, but ancient ones. Dim, golden, humming with stories. Stories older than Narcissus, older than Echo, older than the gods who once roared and cursed and disappeared when no one was watching. Here, under this sky, silence has weight. It drapes over the land like linen damp with river mist. You feel it in your lungs. In your bones. In the space between your thoughts. The puddle does not sleep. Water rarely does. It rests, yes. It waits. But it does not sleep. It reflects. That is its one trick, and its one curse. And tonight, as the crickets sing and the owls glide past like tired ghosts, it reflects the stars, and the boy who has not left. Who may never leave. Narcissus lies beside it, his cheek nearly touching the dirt, his lashes catching the faint shimmer of starlight. He looks peaceful, if you didn't know better. if you hadn't watched him for hours, days, a lifetime, maybe. You know now that his stillness is not calm. It's surrender. The kind of surrender that happens when the world forgets you, and you decide not to care. His body has thinned, not from illness, but from absence. He is no longer here the way he once was. Not in fullness. Not in color. He exists now in echoes, of breath, of skin, of a name spoken too many times into silence. He speaks no more. There's nothing left to say. The reflection speaks nothing back. It never did. It only blinked when he blinked, smiled when he smiled, cried when he cried. And now, even that is beginning to fade. The stars above ripple across the puddle's surface, and the face in the water looks like a ghost's mask, beautiful, but thin. Almost too thin to recognize. You lie nearby, your own body sinking slightly into the warmth of the ground. The insects no longer seem loud. They've blended into the rhythm of your blood. The grass bends around you, not to cradle, but to accept. You think of Echo. Not the reflection now, but the girl who once followed this boy through the hills, through the caves, through her own undoing. Her voice is still out there somewhere, wrapped in the cliffs and the winds and the places where people go to be alone. She still answers those who call. Not because she hopes to be heard, but because it's all she has left. She might have loved him. Or maybe she loved the idea of him, as many do with beautiful people. The silent hope that they will see you, know you, choose you. And maybe she knew, even then, that he couldn't. That he was already promised, not to another, but to himself. You can't compete with a mirror. You can't outshine a face that believes it is the sun. The night deepens. The stars spin in their slow, lazy circles. The wind shifts again, cooler now, more serious. The kind of breeze that carries stories from one village to another, whispers myths into the ears of shepherds who weren't asking for them. Someone will find him soon. They always do, eventually. A stranger, a child, someone wandering farther than they were told to. They'll stumble upon this boy beside the puddle and think he is sleeping. They'll call his name. Maybe once. Maybe twice. And when he does not stir, they'll step back, unsure whether to run or to bow. The puddle will show their reflection too. That's the way of water. It doesn't care whose face it holds. It doesn't mourn. It doesn't remember. It only reflects. And yet, some part of it will carry him. Just a shimmer. A shadow. A rumor of perfect cheekbones and eyes that forgot how to close. The water will ripple, and for just a breath, someone might think they see him. But it will be their own face. And they'll look away. Because only Narcissus could bear to stare that long. You breathe in slowly, your chest rising like a hill worn smooth by wind. Your limbs are heavier now. The kind of heavy that asks nothing. That simply lies still and lets the story finish itself. You feel no sadness. Only quiet. A silence that fills, not empties. A silence that holds you like the earth does, without judgment, without urgency. The boy beside the puddle does not breathe. Not anymore. His body is folded into the dirt, his hair spread like a crown of moss and dust. The gods, if they are watching, say nothing. They rarely do. They gave him beauty, gave him prophecy, gave him a puddle. And then they left. As they always do when the lesson is finished, and the punishment no longer entertains. And yet, from the ground beneath his body, something stirs. Not spirit. Not soul. Something simpler. Softer. A stem. A leaf. A bud. It pushes through the soil like a secret whispered in a funeral hole. It grows with the kind of patience Narcissus never had. Slowly. Perfectly. And in time, though time is meaningless now, it blooms. A flower. Pale gold. fragile and proud. They will name it after him, of course. They will say it sprang from his body, his longing, his gaze. They will say he lives on in petals that turn toward the sun, forever looking, forever reaching. They will make it sound beautiful, poetic, meaningful. But you were here. You saw the boy. Not the flower. Not the myth. You watched him bend toward himself until he broke. You watched the puddle keep his secrets. And now, as the flower sways in the breeze and the stars begin to tire, you let your own breath slow. Because there is nothing more to see. And everything left to feel. Sleep, now. Sleep deeply. The puddle is empty. The myth is full. And you are drifting. The sun returns slowly, not with brilliance, but with apology. It rises over the hills like a late guest at a funeral, unsure if it's still welcome. The sky turns from ink to ash to something faintly gold, and the light rolls over the stones and grass like a memory trying to remember where it left itself. You're still here. The ground has not moved beneath you, though it feels softer now. Or maybe you've become part of it. Blended into the earth in the way old stories do, not gone, just rooted. The puddle remains. Of course it does. It has seen too much to evaporate just yet. The water is clearer in the morning, less poetic, more honest. It reflects the sky now, pale, wide, and empty. No face. No voice. Just light. The flower that grew from the place where Narcissus once knelt is still bowed with dew. Its petals are closed, shivering slightly in the breeze, as if it, too, remembers what it grew from. No one tells the flower that it is a boy. But somehow, it knows. Down in the valley, life stirs. A dog barks once, just to hear itself. A pod is set down too hard on a stone table. Someone curses the sun for waking them too early, forgetting that in this world, the sun wakes when it wants. There's no snooze button on Olympus. Just an eternal loop of forgetting and remembering. The villagers have not yet spoken his name this morning. They will, later, when the silence becomes suspicious. When someone asks, casually, where the boy with the impossible face has gone. And they will shrug, and pretend not to care, and then begin to wonder, one by one, if perhaps the gods have taken him. Or the earth. Or worse, if he left by choice. You shift on the stone, your spine a little stiffer than before. The night has pressed itself into your muscles. You feel older. Not in years, but in knowing. Watching a boy fall in love with his own reflection and vanish into it will do that. You stretch, slowly, as if your body has just learned the weight of myth. Around you, the breeze carries the scent of warm soil, wild thyme, and something faintly floral, sweet, delicate, and new. The flower is blooming now. Its petals open toward the sun as if it remembers the shape of Narcissus' gaze. Not to admire, but to be admired. It does not weep. It does not smile. It simply is. You watch it for a long time. There is nothing else to do. The world around you is still slow, still thick with yesterday. The puddle no longer feels magical. It looks smaller in the morning light, more ordinary. As if it has already forgotten the boy it held for so long. You wonder if it's possible to forget someone even while remembering their shape. The water will reflect again, will show 100 faces, travelers, wanderers, animals, gods disguised as old men. None of them will matter the way he did. And yet it will show them all, without hesitation. That is the nature of reflection. It gives to everyone. It belongs to no one. The flower does not speak. It doesn't need to. Its very presence is a whisper, a final word that no one asked for. If someone finds it, they'll name it. They'll write about it. The poets will turn it into metaphor. The priests will turn it into lesson. And somewhere, years from now, a child will be told that vanity is dangerous, that beauty must be shared, that looking too long in the mirror will invite divine punishment. But none of them will know the truth. That the boy was never vain. He was lonely. And the puddle, for all its stillness, was the only thing that stayed. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the light press gently against your eyelids. Behind them, you see not the boy, but the water. Still. Open. Patient. It calls to something in you, not to your pride, but to your silence. It invites you to look, not for admiration, but for understanding. To see yourself not as the world sees you, but as the world reflects you, exactly as you are, without distortion, without expectation. And maybe that's what Narcissus wanted all along. Not applause. Not worship. Just a moment of honest presence. To be with someone, even if that someone was himself, who would not look away. Who would not ask him to be more, or different, or less. He stared because the face in the water didn't flinch. It loved him back without a name. And that was enough to ruin him. The morning stretches. Birds begin to pick at the earth. A donkey in the distance complains about its load. Life, as it always does, begins again. But here, in this quiet hollow, time hasn't quite caught up. The flower remains. The puddle waits. And you, dream heavy and soft at the edges, linger a little longer before the world remembers you're missing. No one will write a song for you. There will be no altar, no shrine. But you've seen what most never do. You've witnessed the heart of a myth from inside its silence. You've heard the boy whisper to himself until the whispers stopped. And that, in its quiet way, is enough. Rest now. Just a little longer. The story is almost over. But not quite. There are still petals opening. Still light to catch the edge of the water. Still echoes of a boy who never really left, only changed shape. Sleep, if you wish. There's nothing left to find. But everything left to feel. The day continues without asking for permission. The sun, now fully risen, casts its light across the landscape with an indifference that feels divine. It touches the puddle without reverence, without nostalgia, as if it has already forgotten the boy it once warmed. The flower drinks it in, stretching a little taller, a little prouder, as if it too has begun to forget the softness of the boy's voice, the curve of his gaze, the weight of his silence. And you remain, somewhere between remembering and dreaming, watching it all unfold as if you are both present and missing. The village beyond the hills begins to remember him. His name slips into conversations like a breeze through an open window. A woman stirring lentils pauses, the spoon hovering midair, as she mutters to herself, "He hasn't come back." A shepherd squints toward the horizon, pretending to check the weather, but really looking for the familiar figure in white robes that always appeared on the ridge when the morning was young. A child asks too loudly where the beautiful boy has gone, and the adults all turn at once and shush him, as if beauty should not be spoken of in the past tense. As if speaking it aloud might make the gods notice the absence and realize they'd forgotten to punish someone. They'll come soon. Not all at once. First, a curious neighbor, pretending to gather herbs. Then 2 or 3 together, carrying baskets they don't need. Then a priest, or something like a priest, summoned by the village elder who hasn't believed in the gods for years, but suddenly feels they ought to be informed. They will come slowly, reverently, as if the hills might whisper their secrets if approached gently. And when they find the puddle, and the flower beside it, they will not understand what they're looking at. There will be no body. No bones. Only water and petals. But they will know, somehow. In their skin. In the silence. In the way the breeze shifts direction without warning, as if someone has just stood up and walked away. You lie still, not hiding, not seen. The ground beneath you is now warm and cool in equal parts, like a grave that never made up its mind. You stare at the flower, taller now, more open, and wonder if it dreams. If it remembers being more than stem and leaf. If it misses the weight of a name. People will point to it later and say, that's where he became something else. But flowers don't need stories. They just bloom. And wilt. And bloom again. The myth is ours, not theirs. The puddle has begun to shrink. Just a little. Enough to notice. The sun is drying its edges, turning the soft mud to cracked lines like veins across a hand that once held beauty and let it go. You watch the water sigh under the weight of light. It no longer reflects perfectly. There are ripples now, tiny insects dancing on the surface like priests performing rites they don't understand. The reflection, if it still exists, is broken, just fragments of sky and reed and leaf. The boy's face, once held so clearly, has dissolved into patterns no one could love. Maybe this is mercy. Maybe this is how myths end, not with thunder, not with mourning, but with the quiet disappearance of a face. No statue. No tomb. Just a puddle that forgets, and a flower that doesn't need to remember. The villagers arrive before noon. You hear them first, footsteps on dry grass, the hush of people trying not to speak too loudly. A woman gasps, though whether from wonder or sadness you can't tell. A man kneels. Someone whispers, it's just a flower. Another replies, no, it's him. And then the arguments begin, softly, then less so. What should be done? Should it be picked? Protected? Praised? No one agrees, but they all agree that something must be said, something must be done, because silence, though sacred, frightens them more than noise. They build a circle of stones around the puddle. Not tall. Just enough to mark it. As if a myth needs a fence. As if a story can be owned if you build something around it. They leave offerings, a coin, a comb, a scrap of cloth embroidered with ivy leaves. None of these things matter. But it makes them feel better. It makes them feel like they've witnessed something, even if they missed everything. Someone hums a melody with no words. Someone weeps, but only a little, and only when no one is looking. You close your eyes, letting their presence fade into the background. The sound of their sandals, the rustling of their robes, the gentle clink of bracelets as they gesture toward nothing in particular, it all becomes part of the wind. They will leave soon. They always do. The stories they carry back will be inconsistent, embroidered with awe and confusion. Some will say they saw the boy turn into a flower before their eyes. Others will claim it was a punishment for arrogance. One will insist it was a love story. Another will insist it was a tragedy. They'll all be right. They'll all be wrong. The puddle continues to shrink. The flower continues to bloom. And you, heavy-limbed and hollow-breathed, remain. You are no longer sure what time it is. Not because you've lost track, but because time no longer matters here. You've become unstuck from the rhythm of meals and hours and routines. You exist now in the space between heartbeat and breath. Between pedal and reflection. Between silence and story. There is nothing left to learn. Only more to feel. So sleep, if you wish. There are no more faces in the water. Only light. Only memory. Only you. The villagers have gone now. Slowly, one by one, they return to the hills, to the paths that wind homeward, to the routines that wait quietly for their return. No songs were sung. No sacrifices made. No statues erected, not yet. But they will remember what they saw, or thought they saw. A puddle surrounded by stones. A flower that seemed to glow just a little. And the feeling, hard to describe, harder to shake, that someone had been there just a moment before, and might still be watching. They'll tell the story their own way. Each version a little different. A little more dramatic. A little less true. And that is how myths are born, not from truth, but from silence filled in by those who couldn't bear to leave it empty. The afternoon light settles gently across the land, as if it, too, is tired. The sun no longer glares, it rests. Its warmth spreads like old honey across the rocks and the edges of the puddle, which has grown smaller still. The flower bends slightly in the breeze, not out of weakness, but something closer to humility. It does not need to stand tall. It has already been seen. And seeing, after all, was always the point. You shift your weight on the stone, feeling its memory press back into you. Your body has shaped itself around the landscape now. You're not lying on the story, you are part of it. The sound of the wind in the reeds is slower this time. It no longer sings. It hums. And beneath that hum, the earth itself feels stiller than usual, as if even it is pausing to absorb what it has just witnessed. But the earth does not hold on to things. It lets them pass through. It does not remember boys or puddles or flowers. It only remembers weight. And yours is still here. The puddle has begun to dry at the edges. Cracks spread outward in the soil like questions no one wants answered. Soon, it will vanish entirely. Nothing dramatic. Just the quiet withdrawal of water from surface to air, from mirror to memory. There will be no sound when it goes. No gasp. No splash. It will simply stop being, the way all things do eventually. And when it's gone, there will only be the stones, the flower, and the space where someone once looked too deeply into himself. And yet, some part of you keeps watching. Not because you expect something to change, but because you know it already has. The boy is gone. The flower remains. And in between them, a story has been folded into the fabric of the land. People will walk past this place for generations. Some will stop. Others won't. Some will toss pebbles into the dirt where the puddle once was, hoping to see ripples. They won't. Some will kneel by the flower, whispering wishes as if it were a shrine. It isn't. But they'll do it anyway. You wonder what it means to become a myth. Not to be remembered, but to be misremembered. To be reshaped, exaggerated, misunderstood, and loved anyway. Narcissus will never speak again. But his silence will echo in every mirror, in every surface that catches a face and holds it still. In every moment someone stares at their own reflection and wonders if it's enough. Or too much. Or just alone. You breathe in through your nose. The air tastes of clay, sun, and something faintly green, the sweetness of growth, or the end of it. There are birds again, but not singing. Only flitting from branch to branch, as if checking on things. The world has gone back to being itself. That's how you know the story is almost over. When nothing unusual happens anymore. Just normal things, wearing the memory of something sacred. A child will find this place someday. Not yet born, not even imagined. They'll wander too far from the village, chasing a dragonfly or a story they were told not to believe. They'll come upon the flower, the ring of stones, the earth still soft from old footsteps. And they will ask, what happened here? And no one will have the right answer. But they'll offer one anyway. It was a boy, someone will say. He looked into the water and vanished. And the child will nod, pretending to understand, but really just picturing themselves bending over the water and seeing someone they didn't recognize. You close your eyes again. Not from exhaustion, but from ritual. The way the land closes its eyes at dusk. The way stories rest between tellings. You are not tired, but you are ready. Ready for the part where everything fades gently. Where nothing explodes or burns, but simply dissolves, like sugar in tea, like stars at sunrise, like a boy into a flower. You think, one last time, of Narcissus. Not the legend, not the symbol, but the boy. The one who didn't ask to be worshipped, but was. The one who didn't ask for silence, but got it anyway. The one who found his only equal in something that couldn't speak, couldn't love, couldn't hold him. And he stayed, because even that was more than anyone else had given him. The puddle is almost gone now. Just a shimmer. A memory. And still, you stay. Because someone should. Because someone always does. Sleep now, if you wish. There is nothing more to see. But the silence will stay with you. The day has tilted now, slipping gently toward evening again, though it doesn't announce itself the way it used to. The sun moves lower in the sky with the weary grace of something that has circled this story too many times to be surprised anymore. The air, once heavy with summer, has cooled into something that carries whispers. Not voices. Just the feeling of voices. The way something lingers in a room even after everyone has left, the warmth in a chair, the creak of a floorboard, the faint perfume of presence. You lie still. Your body, like the earth beneath you, has become a resting place for quiet things. The puddle has finally disappeared. It didn't gasp or fight. It just stopped being there. One moment, it caught the curve of the sky in its surface. The next, it held nothing. Only dirt now, dry and cracked, a pale ring where water once remembered a face. You might think this would feel like a tragedy. But it doesn't. It feels inevitable. Like the end of a breath you didn't realize you were holding. And maybe that's all endings are, quiet releases. Not bangs. Not thunder. Just soft exhalations that say, it's done. The flower remains. Of course it does. It's more open now than before, golden at the tips, green at the stem, proud in the way things are when they've grown out of grief without even meaning to. No one told it to bloom. No one asked it to hold meaning. But it does. It is meaning, now. Not because it tried. But because someone once watched a boy fall into silence beside it, and decided that mattered. You turn your head slightly, just enough to feel the stretch in your neck, the bones cracking softly like old wood. The light moves across your skin. It's the kind of light that makes everything look older and more beautiful at once. Worn statues, faded linens, your own face in the quiet corners of a mirror. You wonder what Narcissus would have thought of this hour. The golden stillness. The long shadows. Would he have turned toward it, toward something other than himself? Would he have found peace in the way the world keeps spinning even after you stop watching? You'll never know, of course. That's the cruelty of myth. It gives you glimpses but never explanations. It hands you symbols and asks you to feel your way through them like a blind man in a temple. The story is finished now, but it hasn't really ended. It's just stopped speaking. And in that silence, you feel something shift in your chest, not sadness, not joy, just space. Like something that had been taking up room in you has finally exhaled and left. The villagers will return again. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday. They'll find the flower again, grown a little wilder, surrounded by weeds that don't understand reverence. Maybe there will be no stones left. Maybe someone will have moved them, not knowing what they were for. Or maybe they'll still stand in their quiet ring, a soft reminder that something once mattered here. Someone will bend to smell the flower. Someone will pick it. Someone else will stop them, say, that's sacred. And they'll shrug and walk away, not understanding. Because myths live in people, not in places. And places always forget. You watch the sky turn. It no longer burns. It glows. A tired kind of glow, the glow of candles at the end of a feast. The wind lifts your hair, brushes the side of your face like a mother you don't remember. The grass around you has begun to lean toward the night. Everything leans eventually. Everything bends. And you, still wrapped in a warmth of sleep that has not quite claimed you, realize this may be the closest you've ever been to understanding stillness. Not the absence of motion, but the presence of quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for your attention, but rewards it. The kind of quiet that remembers everything, even the things no one else does. Somewhere far off, a bell rings. Not loudly. A cowbell maybe. A call to dinner. A reminder that the world goes on. You don't get up. There is no hurry. If the story waited for this long, it can wait a little more. You let the sounds pass through you, the birds, the breeze, the distant muttering of life. You are here. Still. Watching a flower that used to be a boy, beside a puddle that used to be a mirror. And there is something heartbreakingly peaceful about that. You think of all the people who will never know this story. Who will pass mirrors every day without wondering what they reflect. Who will love themselves too little, or too much, or not at all. Who will never understand that to love yourself is not vanity, but longing. That sometimes, looking at your own face is the only way to feel seen. And that sometimes, it ruins you. But that's not your burden now. Your only task is to rest. To let the myth finish settling into the earth. To let the silence hold you the way the puddle once held him, perfectly, reflectively, and without judgment. Sleep now, if you haven't already. You've earned the forgetting. And the story, what's left of it, will stay here. Quietly. Waiting. The light continues to fade, but now it does so with purpose. Not like earlier, when the sun tiptoed across the hills in lazy circles, unsure if it wanted to stay. Now it retreats steadily, as if it knows this part of the day belongs to something else, not quite sleep, not quite death, but the strange in-between state that myths linger in after they've been told. You are still lying there, your body half in shadow, half in warmth. The air around you is quieter now, the kind of quiet that feels intentional. As though the world is choosing not to speak, just to see what you'll do with the silence. The flower beside you glows faintly in the amber twilight, its petals curled slightly at the tips, not in pain, but in repose. It has become so still, so integrated into the landscape, that it's hard to remember it was ever anything else. That once, in the space where its roots now drink from the earth, a boy knelt and whispered his longing to the water. A boy so beautiful the gods grew bored of watching others love him, and instead made him love himself. But now, all of that feels far away. The story is still here, yes, but softer. Blurred at the edges. Like something remembered after waking. You feel the ache of your limbs more now. Not because they hurt, but because they've been forgotten for so long. Your fingers twitch slightly against the stone. A leaf lands near your wrist and stays there, unmoving. Time has become syrupy. Slow. Heavy. There is nothing pulling you forward. Only the slow surrender of your breath and the grounding weight of everything that has already happened. And yet, despite the stillness, you feel no urgency to rise. You belong to the slowness now. Your thoughts move like fog. Not toward answers. Just toward softness. Far in the distance, a bird cries out once, a single, long note that echoes for longer than it should. It sounds more like a question than a warning. But there is no reply. There are no gods here tonight. No messengers. No thunderbolts. Just the land, the flower, the fading memory of a puddle, and you. And all of it, every stone, every whisper of wind, feels like it's holding its breath around you, protecting the quiet, honoring the boy who once became too fascinated with his own shadow. You begin to wonder how many other stories the world has buried in silence. How many puddles once held the last reflections of people too tired to explain themselves? How many hills carry the echo of someone's last thought? Not heroic. Not tragic. Just honest. You imagine someone else, long ago or not yet, finding this flower as you did. Kneeling beside it, wondering if it means anything. And deciding, for no reason at all, that it does. The puddle is gone, truly gone now. The soil has hardened, the cracks sealed over with dust and roots and the breath of animals who don't care about myth. A beetle crosses the space where the water once lay, its legs tapping against the earth like tiny drums. It pauses at the edge of a stone, turns, and disappears into the grass. You envy it, a little. Its purpose, its smallness, its freedom from reflection. The villagers don't come back this time. They have resumed their lives, carrying the story with them like a warm stone in a pocket, touched occasionally, remembered when needed, forgotten when not. Some believe he became a flower. Others believe he wandered off and became a shepherd in another village. One insists he was never real, that he was a test from the gods, or a warning. But none of that matters anymore, because the story has stopped asking to be understood. It only asks to be witnessed. You open your eyes, or maybe they were never closed, and gaze upward. The sky is darker now. The first true stars of evening have come out. Not the faint whispers from earlier, but the real ones. Confident. Slow burning. Ancient. You stare at them without blinking, and for a moment, you feel like the reflection. Not the one Narcissus saw, but the one the puddle offered to the sky. Unmoving. Honest. Temporary. The air grows colder. It does not bite. It merely settles around your shoulders like a blanket made of night. You let it. You let everything. Your breath slows to match the rhythm of the wind through the grass. You feel your heart beat, once, then again, then again. Each time softer. Not because it's failing, but because it knows you're listening now. And the flower, the one you've watched bloom and glow and sway, leans toward you. Not out of recognition. Not out of love. Just toward warmth. Toward breath. Toward stillness. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to surrender. You don't need to see anymore. You have seen enough. A puddle that reflected the soul. A boy who believed in his own image. A myth that faded not with tragedy, but with time. Sleep now. If not for you, then for him. There is no more water. Only memory. Only silence. And the soft, slow breathing of someone who chose to stay. The world has changed again, not in the way thunder changes it, not suddenly, but in the way a shadow moves across a wall at sunset. Slowly. In silence. You barely notice until it's gone. The warmth of the day has completely slipped away now, and the stones around you have cooled to the touch. The air is not sharp, but it carries the kind of chill that makes you pull your limbs closer to your body, not out of fear, but to keep something small and soft from slipping out, a memory, a feeling, a thread of myth. You are not cold, not really. But you can feel absence now. Not just the absence of warmth. The absence of a presence. The puddle. The boy. The story. And still, the flower remains. You hear it before you see it, not with your ears, but with your breath. The way it leans into the stillness. The way it claims no space yet holds all attention. It doesn't glow anymore. It doesn't need to. It is simply there. The earth around it is hard now, the soil dry from sun and silence, but the roots have gone deep. Perhaps they drink from memory. Or perhaps they drink from a kind of sorrow that only flowers can taste. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the flower has outlived the boy. Outlived the puddle. Outlived the story. And now, it outlives you too, as you lie still, blinking slowly, your body a part of the earth more than it is apart from it. Somewhere far away, a fire crackles in someone's home. You can smell it faintly, wood smoke, olive pits, a stew that's been left on the edge of the heat too long. It smells of comfort. Of people who did not witness what you did. Who are eating, laughing, arguing over whether to salt the bread. They do not know that a flower has bloomed from a boy who could not look away from himself. They do not know that a puddle once held the softest tragedy ever written in silence. And they do not need to. That is the kindness of myth. It doesn't demand understanding. It simply waits for those who notice. You look at the sky again. It is not the same sky. It is deeper now. More honest. The stars have arranged themselves into new stories while you weren't watching. Shapes you'll never name. Faces you'll never recognize. But they don't need you to. They shine anyway. You wonder if Narcissus ever looked at the stars. If he ever lifted his head long enough to see the beauty above him. Or if all he ever knew was the shape of his own face, curling like smoke across the water. Was he truly in love with himself? Or was he simply too afraid to look anywhere else? You shift your hand slightly, tracing a line in the dirt. The soil is cool and soft beneath your fingers, like the first pages of a book no one has dared to write. You feel something in your chest, not sorrow, not joy, but recognition. You are not Narcissus. But you understand him now. That lonely ache. That quiet hunger to be seen, just once, without having to explain yourself. To stare into something, anything, that looks back and says, I see you. And you are enough. Maybe that's all he ever wanted. And maybe that's why the puddle was so cruel. Because it gave him the illusion of being seen, without ever truly seeing him. The wind moves again, brushing against your face, tugging softly at your hair, like a goodbye that isn't sure whether to speak. It stirs the petals of the flower, but only slightly. It does not try to pluck it, or bow it, or scatter it. It lets it be. The way no one ever let Narcissus be. You imagine the wind carries a little of him now. A sigh. A breath. A whisper of what could have been, drifting through the hills, brushing past other puddles, other faces, other people trying not to disappear into themselves. You feel your own breath slow again. Not from tiredness, but from stillness. Your body is no longer separate from this place. You are the listener, the stone, the soil. You are the echo that does not speak. You are the one who stayed after the myth ended. And that, perhaps, is the most sacred role of all, not the hero, not the god, not even the flower. But the one who remained. The one who watched. The one who believed the quiet was worth staying for. The flower leans slightly in your direction again. No reason. No miracle. Just motion. And in that motion, something unspoken is understood. You are not alone here. You never were. The story didn't end because the boy disappeared. It ended because someone stayed to remember him. Because someone, somewhere, said, this mattered. And so it does. Sleep now. Not because the story is finished, but because it no longer needs to be told aloud. It has sunk into you. And you, in your stillness, are part of it now. Night has fully arrived now, though it didn't knock. It just let itself in, quietly, like a familiar guest who's been gone too long to explain why. The stars hang low and unbothered, spread across the sky like old letters no one dares to reread. They blink slowly, lazily, not out of impatience, but out of infinite time. You lie beneath them, still and soft, your breath barely stirring the cool air, your thoughts the gentle rhythm of someone half awake, half remembered. The ground beneath you no longer feels like stone or dirt, it feels like memory. The kind of memory that doesn't hurt, but also doesn't let go. The flower beside you doesn't sleep either. Flowers, like stories, bloom and fade, but rarely rest. Its petals, open wide in the darkness, look almost silver now, touched by starlight, or maybe just by myth. It does not shiver in the breeze, does not fold away from the cold. It is not afraid. It has already become what it was meant to be, not an ending, but a continuation. A whisper in the shape of a petal. A boy turned into something that no longer questions why. You shift slightly, just enough to remind yourself that you're still here. The air presses gently against your skin, the way a lullaby presses against a sleeping child, present, but never urgent. Somewhere far off, a night bird sings a note so long it feels like it might stretch into tomorrow. And then silence returns, unbroken, like the pause between one myth and the next. The puddle is gone, the earth dry, the boy silent. And yet, somehow, everything feels full. Brimming, even. As if you could scoop the night into your hands and find it heavy with meaning. You wonder how many others have laid here, beside the space where a god's indifference turned into a boy's longing. How many wandered too close, saw the flower, and didn't know what it meant. How many picked it, pressed it between the pages of a book, and never realized they were holding the remains of a story that once reflected the very essence of being seen. Most, you think, passed by. And that, too, is part of the myth. That it doesn't need everyone. Only one. One watcher. One sleeper. One soul who knows when silence becomes sacred. The sky above continues its slow spin, like a forgotten machine still faithfully turning. A shooting star crosses the darkness, thin as thread, dawn before you can follow it. You don't wish. Wishes are for people who still think stories end happily. You simply watch it go. Like Narcissus did with everything else, people, time, himself. Watched it go, and stayed. Until he became what he couldn't stop looking at. Until he disappeared. And now, it seems, you understand something deeper. He wasn't selfish. He wasn't vain. He was desperate. Desperate to hold on to the only thing that looked back. To feel the comfort of familiarity, even if it was just a trick of water and light. He was not punished by the gods. He was abandoned. Left to love something that could never love him back. And in the end, he gave himself to that love. Willingly. Quietly. Beautifully. You feel a weight in your chest, not sadness exactly, but something related. A quiet ache that comes when you see someone clearly, even too late. And as you lie there, eyes half-lidded, limbs heavy with stillness, you realize you are no longer just a witness. You've become part of the myth's echo. You've folded yourself into the silence. Into the pause between bloom and decay. The flower sways again, its movement barely visible, but enough to remind you it's alive. That life, even in its quietest forms, still happens. Still continues. The boy is gone, but the story is not. It lingers in the soil, in the air, in the shape your body leaves in the ground. It lingers in a breath you still take. And as long as someone lies still enough to listen, the myth will never vanish. It will only change shape. From boy, to flower, to memory, to sleep. The wind carries a new scent now, faint, green, like moss after rain. Like something ancient waking up to stretch. The kind of scent that doesn't belong to a moment, but to an entire season. You inhale deeply, letting it fill the hollow spaces. The ones that once held names, or pain, or questions. The ones that myths are always trying to reach. You close your eyes again, not from exhaustion, but from fullness. There is nothing left to see tonight. Only the dark, and the light scattered within it. Only the flower that once was a boy. Only your breath, folding into the quiet like another line in a story that will never end, because it no longer needs to. And now, finally, you feel sleep approaching. Not as a stranger, but as something old and familiar. Something that knew Narcissus before he was named. Something that knew you before you began listening. Let it take you. You have watched long enough. You have seen the stillness. And become it. The sky has grown darker, but not emptier. It is thick with stars now, too many to count, too distant to reach, yet each one glowing with a kind of patience that only the night understands. You lie beneath them, and for the first time, you do not wonder how far away they are. You do not ask what they are made of. You only receive them. Like small, glimmering confessions scattered across a velvet sky. And in this stillness, where questions no longer need answers, you begin to feel the weight of what the myth was trying to say all along, that sometimes, to look outward is too painful. And sometimes, to look inward is the only thing left. The flower has not moved, not really. It leans, it listens, it waits. But it no longer performs. It is not reaching. It is not blooming for applause. It has become what it was meant to become, a vessel. Not of Narcissus' soul, no. He was never a prisoner here, but of the story, of the stillness, of the echo that refuses to fade. Its petals, now silver in the starlight, catch the wind and release nothing. No scent, no dust, just presence. And that, more than anything, feels holy. You begin to understand that the puddle never had power. It was not magic. It didn't trap the boy. It didn't steal him. It simply reflected. It offered what it had, truth in the form of a mirror. And like all mirrors, it did not lie. It only waited to be seen. Narcissus wasn't destroyed by the water. He was undone by what he saw. And more painfully, by the silence that came after. The realization that even the most beautiful reflection cannot reach back. You turn your face to the side, cheek brushing against the soft grid of the ground. The earth has accepted you. There's no ceremony to it, no mystical glow. Just weight meeting weight. Just gravity doing what it always does, holding things that are tired. The flower stands at your shoulder now, like a sentinel or a quiet witness, and it doesn't need to bloom anymore. It's done enough. And so have you. Far off, a dog barks once, low and half-hearted. A response comes from another hill, but both voices fade quickly. The world is busy doing nothing now. Everything that was urgent has gone to sleep. Even the wind, who usually likes to wander, seems to have curled up for the night. The silence is not empty. It is full of memory. It holds the story the way the puddle once held the face, gently, clearly, and without comment. You remember, briefly, the villagers. Their cautious reverence. Their confusion. Their need to explain. They will return someday, or maybe never. They will tell their children different versions of this place. The flower will change in each retelling. It will become brighter, or sadder, or red instead of gold. Some will say it was planted by a god. Others will say it bloomed from love. Others still will say it's just a flower. And all of them will be right. And none of them will be. Because the truth, the real truth, has no need for decoration. It is simple. A boy looked at himself. Saw too much. Stayed too long. And became something else. You breathe slowly, your chest rising in rhythm with the invisible waves of wind moving across the hills. There is no time now. Not for you. Not for the flower. Not for the story. Everything has stretched beyond time, into a space where only stillness remains. The kind of stillness that doesn't ask you to believe it. Only to rest inside it. Your mind, once so full of questions, begins to soften. The edges blur. The thoughts become whispers, then fragments, then images. A boy by a pool. A ripple. A sigh. A pedal. The smell of warm stone. The way the wind touched your wrist before vanishing. These are not pieces of a story. They are what's left when the story has done its work. The stars have moved again, just slightly. You notice, not because you're tracking them, but because the flower's shadow has changed. It now falls across your hand. And in that moment, you feel seen. Not by the gods. Not by the sky. But by the quiet. The same quiet that watched the boy disappear. The same quiet that held the puddle until it dried. The same quiet that now holds you. You feel the story loosening its grip. Not in a sad way, but like a parent releasing the hand of a sleeping child. You are being let go of gently. Slowly. As if the myth knows you're ready to carry it now, instead of being carried by it. Sleep, if you haven't already. You've heard everything. And now, it's time to become still. Like the flower. Like the water. Like the boy who finally stopped speaking. The ground beneath you has grown cooler now, not cold, just indifferent, the way old stone becomes when the warmth of the day finally leaves it alone. You feel it seep up into your bones, not like discomfort, but like remembrance. As though the earth itself is trying to remind you of something you haven't quite forgotten, but haven't said aloud in years. That everything returns to silence. That stillness is not a punishment, but a place we all arrive at eventually, like a dock at the end of a long, patient river. The kind of place where no one is waiting, and that's the point. The flower, still at your side, leans very slightly, not as though moved by wind, but by memory. Its stem curves now, just a little. As if it's grown tired of standing straight. Or perhaps it's listening. To the hum of the night, to the quiet rhythm of your breath, to the echo of a boy who used to speak too loudly inside his own mind. There is nothing ceremonial about the moment. No divine shimmer, no flute music in the distance. Just this, a flower that once was myth, now simply existing, surrounded by nothing but soft air and soil that doesn't ask questions. Your eyes remain closed, but your awareness floats like mist above the surface of thought. You do not sleep, exactly. You drift. A kind of waking dream where images come uninvited and unimportant, a ripple across water, a face glimpsed and gone, a hand reaching out but never touching. These aren't visions. They aren't prophecies. They're what remains after everything else is done. The sediment of a life, of a legend, settling slowly at the bottom of your mind. And far off, in a part of the night that no longer connects to maps or footsteps, someone else stirs. Maybe another wanderer. Maybe just a goat herder who took the long path home. Someone who pauses under the same stars, hears the same wind, and feels, just for a moment, that the air holds a little more meaning than it should. They won't come here. Not tonight. But something about their stillness echoes yours. And the myth reaches just a little farther, the way water creeps across stone after rain. The puddle is not remembered now. Not by the insects. Not by the grass. Only by you, and maybe by the ground that once held it. You think about how strange that is, how something can hold a person, a reflection, a death, and then evaporate as if it never mattered. But maybe that's what makes it sacred. That it didn't need to last. That it only needed to reflect for as long as someone was looking. And once he stopped, it was free to leave. You shift your shoulder, feeling the pressure of the earth as it molds around you. The ache is dull now, not pain, just permanence. You are here. And the story knows it. You've stayed through all of it, the watching, the wondering, the withering. And now the myth rewards you not with answers, but with quiet. The truest kind of ending. The night deepens again. Not darker, just older. The stars above begin to thin, not because they are fewer, but because your focus has softened. Your mind no longer reaches for the sky. It has turned inward, folded in like petals at the end of bloom. Not from shame. From rest. From trust. The kind of trust that only comes when the story no longer needs to prove itself. You lie still, not because you're tired, but because motion would feel like a betrayal. The flower sighs, or something close to it. Maybe it's the way its leaves rustle against the grass, or maybe it's the sound of the wind tracing its shape. You hear it, not with your ears, but with your body. And in that sound, you hear the boy again. Not his words. Just his pause. The pause he held between love and longing. The moment before he fell in. And still, no one calls his name anymore. No one comes searching. Because myths do not need witnesses forever. Only long enough to plant themselves in someone like you. You breathe in, once, deeply. The scent of earth, of nighttime, of old air wrapped around new silence. It fills your lungs without asking permission. You let it. You let everything. And you wonder, softly, what the boy would say if he could see you here now, not looking at him, but staying anyway. Not falling into the puddle, but lying beside the space it left behind. Would he envy you? Would he understand? Would he finally believe that being seen is not the same as being known? But those questions, too, pass. And in their place, nothing. And it is the most peaceful nothing you have ever known. Sleep, now, if you haven't already. There are no more ripples. Only roots. Only stillness. Only you. The night has entered its final hour, that soft, blue-gray corner of time where dreams begin to drift loose and the stars seem less like lights and more like holes in the fabric of the world. You lie there still, surrounded by the hush of everything that no longer needs to be said. There are no animals stirring now, no breeze to move the grass. Even the leaves on the nearby trees have stopped rustling. They hang in the air like held breath. It's as if the world has wrapped itself in the story you've just lived, and is waiting for it to settle fully into your bones. The flower remains, unmoved. It glows now not from light, but from presence, the kind of soft, unshakable presence that myths sometimes leave behind when they're finished with their speaking. You no longer think of it as Narcissus. Not a boy, not a name, not a tragedy. Just a flower. Just a thing that became what it needed to become. There is no sadness in it. No loss. It is not a symbol anymore. It is just here. And somehow, that is enough. You haven't spoken in what feels like hours. But then, you haven't needed to. This isn't a place where voices matter. This is a place of eyes closed, of silence accepted, of listening with something older than ears. You have felt the whole myth pass through you, first as story, then as atmosphere, then as breath. And now, it is part of you. Not in a way that demands retelling. Just in the way a stone remembers pressure. Quietly. Permanently. You stretch your fingers once, gently, to remind yourself that you are still in a body. That you have shape. That you have not yet turned into wind or shadow or reflection. But even that feels optional now. You could stay here forever and it would be the same. The world would forget, the puddle would vanish, and the flower would continue to bloom for no one in particular. And you would keep listening. You begin to wonder if anyone ever truly saw him. Narcissus. Before the puddle, before the myth. Was there ever someone who looked past the perfect face and saw the boy inside, not proud, not vain, just terribly alone? Someone who noticed how carefully he walked, how quiet he became when no one watched him, how his eyes flickered not with ego, but with doubt. You think of Echo, and how even she could only repeat what he said. No new words. No comfort. Just the echo of his own voice, returned without warmth. And you realize now that this place, this moment, this final stretch of myth, is not about love. Not really. It's about loneliness. The kind so deep and still that when you finally hear your own voice reflected back to you, it feels like salvation. Even if it's only water. Even if it's only a lie. You inhale slowly, and feel the air push out the last dots still clinging to your chest. They float away without protest, without shape. They're not needed here. This is not a place for thinking. This is a place for being. For lying beside the ruins of a story and becoming part of its quiet. The ground beneath you, which once felt dry and hard, now feels soft. Almost like it's breathing with you. The flower leans slightly in your direction, the way people sometimes do when they've grown used to your presence. Not to speak. Not to connect. Just to share space. You are not alone. You never were. You only thought you were. Just like him. The puddle may be gone, but you feel its memory inside you. Not the reflection itself, but what it meant, the act of looking, the ache of wanting, the stillness that came when the wanting never ended. You understand now that the puddle was never meant to last. It was only meant to show you who you were, one time, before vanishing. And so it has. You breathe again, slower now. Not from tiredness. From peace. From a kind of invisible completion. The story does not ask for applause. It asks for sleep. It asks to be carried quietly, the way you carry the feeling of a dream long after it ends. It will live on, not in the puddle, not in the flower, not in the telling, but in your stillness. In the way you lie here now, unhurried, unafraid. So rest. There is nothing left to chase. Only silence to hold. And the myth that no longer needs to be remembered to be real. You've stopped keeping track of time. The stars have shifted again, though you didn't notice when. The flower hasn't changed. Not in any way that matters. It still leans gently, still holds the quiet like a cup filled to the brim but never spilling. The story no longer moves. It rests. It has found a place to settle, not in the ground, not in the sky, but in you. You are its last listener tonight, and possibly its last for a very long while. There's something peaceful in that. Something sacred. To be the one who stayed long enough to see the silence bloom. Your breathing has become slower than before, deeper, less like effort and more like permission. With each inhale, the story deepens. With each exhale, it softens. You feel less like a visitor now. You've blended into the landscape. The stone beneath you no longer notices you as something separate. The grass no longer shifts in response to your presence. You are becoming part of the place. Part of the pause that follows a myth too old to argue with. The flower does not open further. It doesn't need to. Its petals remain exactly where they should be, curved gently outward like hands cupped to hold rain that never comes. There is no need for growth anymore. Only presence. Only staying. And that's what you've done. You stayed. You stayed through the watching, through the wondering, through the waiting. You stayed until even the silence grew quiet. You think again of Narcissus, though by now he feels more like a feeling than a person. He has dissolved into symbol, then past symbol, into atmosphere. You don't picture his face anymore. Not the perfect features that turned heads for inspired sighs. You picture the way he looked at the water. Not the expression, but the act. The steady gaze, the leaning in, the forgetting of the world. That part stayed with you. That part is still happening. You wonder what he thought in his last moments, not the dramatic ones told in stories, but the quiet ones, the hours where he simply lay beside the puddle, too tired to speak, too enchanted to move. Did he realize the water was only reflecting what he brought to it? Did he understand that the love he longed for was his own, turned outward and mistaken for something new? Or did he never see the trick? Did he die believing he was finally loved? It doesn't matter now. The story has given you what it came to give. Not a lesson. Not a warning. Something else. Something slower. It gave you stillness. The kind that seeps into your joints, your breath, your thoughts, until all that's left is a soft, heavy kind of peace. The kind that no longer seeks mirrors. The kind that no longer asks questions. You listen. Not for sounds. For weight. For presence. The earth has a weight to it here. So does the story. So does the sleep that is drawing nearer with each moment. It is not falling, not drifting. It is folding. Like cloth being laid over something precious. You feel it in your limbs, not the desire to move, but the relief of not having to. The way stillness becomes safety. The way silence becomes home. Above you, the sky has begun to blur. Not from clouds. From your own soft eyes, too tired to focus, too peaceful to care. The stars no longer seem separate. They shimmer together now, like a distant sea. And the space between them is no longer empty. It's full of something you can't name. The same thing that filled the puddle before it vanished. Reflection, perhaps. Or memory. Or sleep. You don't need to know. Knowing is not part of the myth. Only watching. Only staying. Only lying beside a story until you forget where you end and it begins. The flower at your side does not reach for the light. It does not hope. It does not mourn. It has moved beyond all of that. It simply exists. And in doing so, it honors everything that came before: the boy, the gaze, the water, the silence. You begin to feel like that flower. Rooted. Open. Still. And in this stillness, the story begins to close, not with noise, not with endings, but with a sigh that's too quiet to hear. You do not move. You do not need to. You've already arrived. Sleep now, if you haven't. There's only one section left. But you're already part of the ending. The story is nearly over now. But not in the way a book ends or a song fades out. There is no final sentence here, no clear last breath. Only the feeling that something has already begun to drift, not away from you, but into you. Like mist folding into fabric, like light settling into water. You are no longer watching a myth. You are resting inside it. It surrounds you, not like a tale that needs to be told, but like a place that quietly allows you to stay. There is no sound, no movement. Just warmth, just weight, just the breath of the world continuing without any need for applause. The flower beside you is still here, still exactly where it was. You do not need to look at it anymore. You know it now, the way you know a familiar silence or a memory that returns without asking. It is not just a symbol. It is the final word the story didn't say. It is not about beauty, not about punishment, not even about love. It is about the part of you that waited long enough to understand something without needing to name it. The petals no longer shine. They simply rest. As you do. The stars above have blurred further. Not gone, just indistinct, the way dreams become when sleep deepens. You no longer see individual shapes, only soft glows. Lights that float in a sky too large to belong to anyone. You feel your own edges beginning to blur as well. Your limbs are still here, your breath still steady. But the line between you and the earth has softened. You are not sinking. You are merging. The dust accepts you. The night pulls you close. And somewhere far off, so far it might not be real, another puddle waits. Not magical. Just quiet. Just water in a hollow space, waiting for someone to see themselves and wonder what it means to be seen. Maybe it will reflect a face. Maybe it won't. Maybe someone will walk past without noticing it at all. That's fine. Not every reflection becomes a story. But the possibility remains. And that, more than anything, is what stories are made of. You begin to forget the boy's name. Not out of disrespect, but out of kindness. Out of softness. His name was never the important part. His name was the surface. What you remember now, and will carry with you into sleep, is the way he looked at himself. The way he stayed. The way he disappeared so quietly that the world had to invent a flower to mark the spot. You remember his gaze. His silence. His echo. And most of all, you remember the stillness. The kind that comes not from understanding, but from stopping the search. The kind that arrives when you stop asking what things mean and simply let them be. The puddle is gone. The boy is gone. Even the reflection has dissolved. But the myth, the feeling of it, will stay with you. Not as a weight, but as a hush. A hush that wraps itself around your body like warmth you didn't expect. Like love that doesn't need to be returned. Like rest. True rest. The kind that belongs to people who stayed long enough to hear the silence all the way through. So now, sleep. Sleep not as an escape, but as a return. You are not leaving the story. You are becoming what it always meant. Still. Quiet. Unfolded. Gone. And still here. Always here.